Have you ever thrown a leg over a new bike and feel like you are negotiating with a computer instead of riding a machine? Today we are counting down 15 air-cooled motorcycles that still outlast, outsimplify, and outride most modern bikes on the road. Because while everyone else is chasing ride modes and software updates, these machines just need fuel, oil, and a rider who knows what he is doing. Miss this list and you might end up trading mechanical freedom for a dashboard full of problems. Number 15, Yamaha SR400. Here is what most modern motorcycles cannot offer anymore. A bike that feels like a tool, not a touchscreen on wheels. The Yamaha SR400 earns its place because it refuses to play the game. It is air-cooled, kick-started, and stubbornly unchanged. The kind of machine that makes you remember why riding used to feel personal. First released in the late 1970s, the SR400 carried the same basic blueprint for more than 40 years. Under that simple tank sits a 399 cubic centimeter air-cooled single, built for steady torque and long life, not spec sheet bragging. Twist the throttle and you do not get map response. You get a clean mechanical pulse, a calm mid-range, and feedback that travels straight through the bars. No traction control, no ride modes, no meanness. You start it with your right leg, and that ritual alone separates it from today's push-button sameness. Clean used examples usually land between about $2,500 and $6,500. If this is your kind of riding, less software, more throttle, hit that like button, drop a hype in the comments, and subscribe. That tells us to keep bringing real machines back into the spotlight instead of chasing whatever the industry is pushing this year. And simplicity in the city is only the beginning. If the SR shows minimalism works, the next step forward proves minimalism survives. And survival is where this countdown starts getting serious. Number 14, Suzuki DR650. If the last bike was about purity on pavement, this one is about durability when the pavement ends. The Suzuki DR650 has outlasted trends, regulations, and entire generations of so-called adventure machines. And it is still standing for one simple reason. It works. At its core is a 644 cubic centimeter air and oil-cooled single, carbureted, understressed, built to deliver a strong pull right off idle and a broad spread of usable torque. You do not scroll through settings before a dirt climb. You roll the throttle and let the big thumper dig. No radiator hanging off the frame. No vulnerable hoses waiting to split miles from nowhere. Fewer parts mean fewer excuses. That simplicity is exactly why riders have trusted this platform for decades in deserts, forests, and backcountry highways. Brand new models still hover a little above $7,000, while solid used examples typically trade between roughly $3,000 and $6,000. That is real-world value for a machine you can service with basic tools in your own garage. The DR650 does not pretend to be advanced, it is proven. But durability alone is not the final word in air-cooled dominance. If the DR is travel reliability, the next machine is rugged specialization. And specialization is where Honda built its reputation. Number 13, Honda XR650L. Some motorcycles are built to impress on a showroom floor. The Honda XR650L was built to survive miles that do not even show up on maps. In production since the early 1990s with almost no electronic interference added along the way, this machine stands as a rolling argument against overcomplication. At its center is a 644 cubic centimeter air, cooled single with a single overhead cam and a carburetor feeding it fuel the old-fashioned way. The power delivery is not dramatic, it is deliberate. Strong low-end pull, steady mid-range, and the kind of response you can meter precisely when traction is questionable and the ground is unpredictable. No radiator to puncture, no coolant to leak, no sensors to strand you hours from pavement. Just fins, steel, and mechanical trust. Maintenance is straightforward enough to handle in your own garage. Valve adjustments, oil service, jetting tweaks, all accessible, all understandable. Let me ask you something. Have you ever adjusted valves on an air-cooled single like this in your own garage? How long did it take you the first time? And did it change the way you look at dealership dependency? Drop your experience in the comments because there is a big difference between owning a motorcycle and understanding one. And riders considering an XR need to hear from people who have actually lived with one. Brand new examples remain surprisingly affordable, and used ones hold their ground because riders know what they are getting. Longevity. But single-cylinder ruggedness is not the only way to defeat complexity. The next chapter adds long-distance capability without surrendering mechanical accessibility. 2 exposed cylinders. Shaft drive eliminating chain wear. Cooling handled by air and airflow, not pumps and hoses. If the XR is battlefield durability, the next step ahead is cross-continent engineering confidence. Number 12. BMW R100 GS. Before adventure bikes carried software updates, the BMW R100 GS carried tools. Built from the late 1980s through the mid-1990s, it ran a 980 cubic centimeter air-cooled boxer twin, producing right around 60 horsepower. But quoting output misses the point. What defines this machine is the way it delivers that strength, a broad, torque-heavy surge paired with the unmistakable sideways pulse of a horizontally opposed engine. Twist the throttle and you feel crankshaft mass, shaft drive engagement, and rear tire grip all working together without electronic mediation. Those exposed cylinders are not styling. They sit directly in the wind, shedding heat naturally. No radiator guards to crack, no coolant lines to rupture in the middle of nowhere, just airflow and aluminum fins doing their job. Routine service is straightforward. Valves out in the open, carburetors easy to reach, shaft drive eliminating chain fuss. Many of these engines have crossed well over 100,000 miles with steady care. Clean examples today typically trade between $7,000 and $12,000, with rarer editions climbing higher. But stability is not the same as intensity. What if you kept the air-cooled twin and sharpened it into a weapon? Italy built one that trades dashboards for direct mechanical aggression. The next direction masters engagement. And engagement is something modern sport bikes increasingly filter out. Number 11. Moto Guzzi Le Mans. Before sport bikes became rolling processors, the Moto Guzzi Le Mans proved speed could come from steel, torque, and stubborn Italian will. Introduced in the mid-1970s, it wrapped a big air-cooled transverse V-twin inside a low, purposeful chassis. Early versions displaced 844 cubic centimeters, later growing past 1,000. Horsepower climbed into the 70s and beyond, but numbers never defined it. Character did. Blip the throttle and the bike shifts gently sideways from crankshaft torque. That movement is not a defect. It is a reminder that machinery is working beneath you. 2 valves per cylinder, carburetors on the early bikes, and a shaft drive delivering power with a solid mechanical feel. Modern inline 4s cannot duplicate. No radiators hiding behind plastic, just cooling fins in open air. Well-kept examples today often trade between $6,000 and $18,000, depending on generation and condition. The Le Mans does not isolate you from speed, it involves you. But high-rev European sharpness is not everyone's definition of mechanical presence. And the next machine takes that same air-cooled conviction and channels it through a very different kind of American muscle. Number 10. Harley-Davidson Shovelhead. Before cruise control buttons and infotainment screens, there was the Harley-Davidson Shovelhead, all fins, push rods, and presence. Built from the mid-1960s through the mid-80s, this air-cooled 45-degree V-twin came in 74 and later 80 cubic inches. It was not engineered to chase red lines. It was tuned to deliver a thick wave of torque right off idle. Heavy flywheels, long stroke, steady cadence. It does not rush. It rolls and every firing pulse comes straight through the bars. Cooling happens the simple way, aluminum fins in open air. No radiators, no coolant, no hidden plumbing. When something needs attention, you do not plug in a scanner. You reach for a wrench. Have you ever wrestled with a pushrod motor and loved every second of it? Share your experience in the comments, whether it was your first valve adjustment, a clutch rebuild, or just learning the rhythm of an air-cooled V-twin. Your stories remind everyone why mechanical honesty still matters. Yes, early examples demanded mechanical sympathy, but properly sorted bikes have covered well over 100,000 miles. Today, solid shovel heads typically trade between $6,000 and $12,000, with pristine machines climbing higher. It is not refined, it is real. But heavy American torque is not built for apex precision. What if you kept air cooling and added razor-sharp sport intent? Italy refined the formula into a twin that punishes modern over-assistance. Number 9. Ducati 900 SS. Now we enter air-cooled performance aristocracy. The Ducati 900 Supersport from the early 1990s was not built around electronics. It was built around balance. At its core sits a 904 cubic centimeter air-cooled Desmodromic L twin producing roughly 75 horsepower, delivered through carburetors and, on many models, that unmistakable dry clutch chatter. It does not overwhelm you with peak output. It rewards precision. Roll the throttle and the mid-range answers immediately. Strong, linear, alive. No traction control trimming your ambition. No ride-by-wire buffering mistakes. Your wrist is the computer. Cooling fins sit clean in the wind. No radiator hanging off the frame. Fewer systems, fewer long-term headaches. Maintain the belts, adjust the valves, keep it tuned, and these engines routinely cover serious mileage. Clean carbureted examples today typically trade between $5,000 and $9,000. The 900 Supersport proves skill matters more than software. But twins are not the only way to dominate without computers. What if you want 4 cylinders and 0 digital interference? Japan built one so over-engineered it embarrassed everything else. The next machine is dominance through engineering mass. And mass, when built correctly, outlasts software cycles. Number 8. Kawasaki Z1. If air-cooled motorcycles had a turning point, the moment the old world got knocked off its feet, the Kawasaki Z1 is it. Released in 1972, it showed up with a 903 cubic centimeter inline-4, dual overhead cams, and around 82 horsepower. For its era, that was not quick. That was a declaration. What keeps the Z1 dangerous today is not nostalgia. It is how direct it feels. The power comes on in a clean surge, carburetors answering your wrist with 0 delay, and that mechanical howl rising through the tank like a live wire. No ride-by-wire, no filters, just combustion and momentum. Air cooling also means fewer weak links. No radiator, no hoses, no water pump waiting to fail. Valve adjustments are old school. Carb sync is hands-on. You can actually own this machine without a laptop. Clean examples now run roughly 12 to 20 grand, with pristine originals climbing far higher. But big displacement is not the only path to mechanical greatness, and the next Honda proves simplicity scales down without losing durability. Number 7. Honda CB400. If you want proof that small does not mean soft, the Honda CB400 delivers it with style. Introduced in the mid-1970s, this was a 408 cubic centimeter air-cooled inline-4 built for smoothness, longevity, and real-world riding, not electronic babysitters. What makes it special is the way it moves. That little 4 does not punch like a modern twin. It flows, climbing through the revs with a silky pull and a sharp metallic soundtrack that feels alive under you. No screens translating the experience. No computer smoothing the edges. You hear it, feel it, and ride it by instinct. Air cooling keeps the ownership side just as honest. No radiator, no coolant leaks, no sensors waiting to throw a warning light. Most maintenance is driveway friendly, the way motorcycles used to be. Today, clean rider quality examples usually sell between 3 and 7 grand. But inline precision is not the only flavor of old school strength. Across the Atlantic, a parallel twin defined timeless durability. The next machine takes that same simplicity and adds a whole different kind of attitude. Number 6. Triumph Bonneville T120. Some modern bikes feel like they are doing the riding for you. The Triumph Bonneville T120 does the opposite. It hands the experience back to the rider, and that is why it lands at number 6. Yes, it is modern, but the spirit is old school. A 1,200 cubic centimeter parallel twin with a 270-degree firing order delivers torque the way it should. Low, steady, and immediately useful. No frantic top-end chase. No need to dig through ride modes just to make the throttle feel normal. It pulls with a calm strength that suits real roads, real traffic, and real miles. The Bonneville's magic is how natural it feels. The power is predictable, the chassis is relaxed, and the whole bike invites you to ride by feel instead of staring at a display. New models start around 14 grand, while clean used examples usually sit between 8 and 11. But even that level of refinement may feel complex to purists. The next chapter reduces the equation further. Long stroke torque, minimal hardware, rebuild-friendly architecture that invites owner involvement. If the Triumph balances tradition and usability, the next machine embodies mechanical austerity. Number 5. Royal Enfield Bullet 500. If any motorcycle still feels like it was carved out of the original idea of riding, it is the Royal Enfield Bullet 500. This bike does not chase speed, does not chase tech, and does not pretend to be something it is not. It is simply a machine with an engine, 2 wheels, and a heartbeat, and that is exactly why it belongs this high. Underneath the metal is a 499 cubic centimeter air-cooled single built around low-end pull, not high RPM drama. Every throttle input feels physical. Every gear change feels earned. That long stroke thump comes through the bars and seat in a way modern engines have sanded away. And because it is air-cooled, the ownership stays simple. No radiator, no hoses, no coolant leaks. Just fins in the wind and a motor you can understand with basic tools. Prices vary wildly, but clean used bullets commonly sit in the 3 to 5 grand range. But simplicity does not have to sacrifice performance. That is where Japan built an air-cooled muscle machine that still intimidates. And next up is a motorcycle that takes old-school engineering and turns it into something genuinely fierce. Number 4. Suzuki GSX 1100S Katana. When Suzuki unveiled the GSX 1100S Katana in the early 1980s, it did not arrive quietly. It cut into the industry with sharp lines, a forward-leaning stance, and an air-cooled engine that meant business. This was not nostalgia. It was aggression shaped in steel. At its core sits a 1,074 cubic centimeter inline-4 pulled from Suzuki's proven GS lineage. The power delivery is muscular through the mid-range and unapologetic up top, climbing with a raw mechanical urgency that modern, electronically filtered sports standards rarely replicate. Carburetors respond instantly. The surge feels physical, not programmed. Air cooling keeps the architecture straightforward. No radiators, no coolant plumbing, no fragile sensors buried behind plastic. Valve service is mechanical. Access is honest. Owners with tools and patience keep these engines alive for decades. Today, clean examples typically trade between $9,000 and $15,000. With pristine originals reaching far higher. But high-rev 4-cylinder muscle is not the only way to dominate. What if you want something more elemental, fewer parts, more pulse? An American V-twin kept it raw, rebuildable, and brutally honest. If this blade-sharp machine holds the 4th position, the next entry raises the stakes in a completely different way. Number 3. Harley-Davidson Sportster Ironhead. Long before dashboards glowed and engines answered to software, there was the Sportster Ironhead, a motorcycle built from steel, oil, and conviction. Produced from the late 1950s through the mid-1980s, it carried an air-cooled V-twin that favored torque over theatrics and durability over polish. The Ironhead does not beg to be revved. It pulls with a thick, deliberate surge, heavy flywheels turning each throttle input into something you feel in your chest. There is vibration, there is mechanical clatter. And that honesty is exactly the point. Cooling comes from fins and moving air. No radiators, no pumps, no fragile sensors waiting to fail. When something needs attention, you handle it with wrenches and instinct, not a scan tool. Owners who stay ahead of basic maintenance see these engines run for decades. Clean riders usually trade between $4,000 and $12,000. But heavyweight torque is not the only formula for lasting impact. The next step forward demonstrates that even lightweight twins can achieve mass production reliability without electronic complexity creeping in. If the Ironhead represents durability through mass, the next machine represents durability through design efficiency. And efficiency made Honda untouchable. Number 2, Honda CB350. Before engines answered to sensors and software, Honda proved a motorcycle could win riders over with balance, durability, and plain mechanical sense. The CB350, introduced in the late 1960s, became the blueprint. Its air-cooled 325 cubic centimeter parallel twin is not about intimidation. It is about rhythm. Power builds smoothly, evenly, predictably. Roll the throttle and the response is immediate, clean, and unfiltered. No ride modes deciding for you. No electronic safety nets stepping in. Cooling comes from fins and airflow alone. That simplicity means fewer components to age, fewer systems to fail, and easier upkeep in a home garage. Valve checks are straightforward. Carburetors sit in the open. Most routine work requires nothing more than hand tools and patience. Well-kept examples typically range from $3,500 to $12,000. Before we move on, do you like this video? Click that like button. And if you want to support this channel even more, become a member for early access to the newest videos before they go public. That support is what allows us to keep highlighting motorcycles built before engineers replace personality with programming. All right, now let us talk about the machine that defined air-cooled dominance. The CB350 shows how scale and simplicity can coexist. High production numbers, proven reliability, serviceable architecture that keeps restorations practical today. But this countdown has been building towards something larger. The next and final machine does not just represent air-cooled reliability, it represents the moment air-cooled engineering defeated every performance expectation of its ERA. Number 1. Honda CB750. Some motorcycles leave a mark. The CB750 reset the entire standard. When it arrived in 1969, it did not ease into the market, it changed it. A transverse air-cooled inline 4. Electric start, a front disc brake, real reliability at a price ordinary riders could reach. The engine is the centerpiece, 736 cubic centimeters of smooth muscular pull with a deep mechanical growl that no modern sound engineering can imitate. Roll the throttle and the response is immediate, connected, and completely under your control. No traction algorithms, no ride modes, just combustion and command. Air cooling keeps the architecture clean, fins, oil, and airflow handling heat without pumps or fragile electronics. Maintained properly, these engines routinely cross 100,000 miles. Clean examples range from roughly $4,500 to $15,000, with early originals climbing far higher. This is not nostalgia. It is the blueprint. And everything that came after, it has been chasing this moment ever since. So here's the truth. Air cooling was not primitive, it was honest, a combustion controlled by your right hand. If this video reminded you why you started riding in the first place, do not stop here. Click the next video and continue the road trip into the machines that shaped real motorcycling. Join our tribe by subscribing, because this channel is not about trends. It is about motorcycles that earn their reputation.